Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Salisha Show and Black Hair in the Big Leagues, you guys. Oh my goodness. When I tell you the joy, mm, the joy in my spirit because I get to talk to somebody who I have looked up to for a while. So let me introduce to you. She is a producer, installation artist, screenwriter, but for real, a renowned award-winning playwright with shows including Sweat, Clyde's, MJ the Musical. Her work has been done all over the world. I studied her in college. Intimate Apparel, Ruined, Crumbs from the Table of Joy. That's just to name a few. Did you know that she also wrote the book for the musical that premiered off Broadway, The Secret Life of Bees? A producer on TV shows like She's Gotta Have It, and on films like What We Do Next, Takeover, The Notorious Mr. Bout. She has a production company. She's received the Pulitzer Prize for Drama twice. The only woman to do that. She got her undergrad from Brown, her master's from Yale, and is an associate professor at Columbia. She was in Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People in 2019. There are at least 17 other plays of hers that I have not mentioned. She has too many awards to list. She has too many awards to list. But a few include multiple Obie Awards, Drama Desk Awards, Lucille Lortel Awards. The list does not end. She is incredible. Y'all, put your hands together and help me welcome the one, the only, Lynn Nottage!
Thank you for that introduction. I certainly hope I can live up to it, but I'm always happy to talk about art and hair.
Live up to it. You did the work. You did that. I'm so excited to talk to you today. How are you? How's your heart today, right now? How are you
My
doing?
heart is really good today. I had a fabulous summer. I was able to do all of the R&R necessary to restore the heart and to restore the spirit. So I'm entering September with a full well and ready to just make my art and teach and do the things that I love.
Oh, amen to that. We love a spirit of abundance. When you feel full, then you can fill into other people's cups. And it sounds like that's what you've done a little bit of. I'd love to ask you, just starting out, about a little bit about your writing process, because you've
Sure.
been doing this thing for a minute. Okay.
Yes.
Can you think way back? What was the moment you thought, I can make a living as a writer?
That's such a good question because I really do think it takes a long time to get to that point. I began writing plays when I was in college. I continued to write in graduate school. But after I graduated from graduate school, I wasn't entirely sure that I could call out a living in this profession because the landscape was quite different than it was quite different back then than it is now. But I really do believe in manifestation. And I think the moment that I realized I could make a living in this industry is when I said, I want to make a living in this industry. And I
Oh,
literally just put it out into the universe because I'd been writing and I was having some degree of success, but still it wasn't enough for me to quit my day job. Still, it wasn't enough
mm,
for me to like put both feet into the water and say, I'm just going to swim across this great vast ocean and
right.
conquer it. And so I think it was really putting it in the universe that I wanted to be rewarded for the work that I was doing, that I didn't want to just continue to have to self subsidize in order to do the things that I loved.
That's it. How, if you could guesstimate, and it's okay if you're like, I have no idea, Salish, how many plays had you written into that journey of, I'm deciding I'm gonna make a living doing
You know,
this?
I mean, my journey has been so circuitous, and so it's really hard. to say just exactly how many plays because I'd had a few professionally produced plays. And, on the outside, it looked like, oh, you have kind of arrived, but I still wasn't making a living.
Yeah.
You get one play produced, and I can give by way of example. I remember doing a show called Fabulation at Playwrights Horizons, which was a wonderful production with incredible actors, extremely successful, a play that still gets done. But my paycheck at the end of each week was $127.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Gotten, at the top of it, like a small commission, which at the time probably was $2,000 or $3,000, but that's not enough to be
Right.
sustainable in New York City. And so that's just the reality of it. I mean, things have changed, the economics have changed, ticket prices are higher,
Yeah.
playwrights are getting more money up front because people understand the labor that goes into making a play even before the
Right.
first day of rehearsal.
Yes, right. So much goes into it. And I just kind of feel like that's kind of like the arts in general. It's like I have some friends who are Broadway stars, show after show after show, and they're like, listen, I'm over here just trying to go grocery shopping and pay my bills. How?
Yeah.
How is that possible? It's like on the outside, it really does look like, oh, yes, I have arrived. But like the money needs to money because you're in an arena of being like in the Olympics of your field. So that,
Right, but the reality about art and theater and visual arts is that it's feast or famine. There are moments of true abundance, and then there are moments in which you struggle greatly to succeed. And it's between those moments of feast and famine that really determines what kind of artist you're going to be. It's like, how do you resurrect your spirit on a daily basis? How do you lean in to the joy of creating when you know that sometimes you won't be rewarded or recognized for it. But that's part of the discipline and part of the art of being an artist is keeping the spirit buoyant.
thank you. You're speaking to my spirit more than you even know that you are right now. What is your writing process? Like, how do you start? How do you finish? How do you like, if you are embarking on something new, is there a process for you? Is it different each time?
I remember asking this years ago as like a baby writer, August Wilson, this question. It's like, well, where do you begin as a writer, and what is your practice? And he was really cryptic in that wonderful way that he could be. He said, a writer writes. And I thought, huh, okay, let me go home and unpack that. And when I got home, what I realized is that he was talking about the fact that you just have to do it and that you don't have to put rules around it. You just have to, on a pretty regular basis, whether it be every day or whether it be every other day, just sit down and put your thoughts to paper. And it doesn't always have to be leading towards something. It could be just like right now, I want to dream on the page, or right now, I just want to draw, write the word circle on the page. But it's like the act of writing, I think, invites more writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my process also, just to answer your question, really began to change after I had children. Because before,
Tell me more.
I was like a binge writer. It's like I wrote whenever. It's like I could get up at 2 in the morning and I could write until 6, and then I could sleep for a little while. Or, I could write all weekend. And then when I had a child, I realized that my time was really precious. And if I was going to accomplish anything, that I really had to figure out a way to write around childcare. And so I began writing from 9 to 2. And that became my
Uh,
routine, but just really being very precious about protecting that time because I knew I only had 5 days from 9 to 2 in the week to write. And I think that that discipline has just continued, even though, my daughter is 26 and my son is 15. I think that I still think of 9 to 2 as my protected writing time. And
Lynn,
even if I'm not writing, huh?
26 and 15.
Yes.
Did you expect the second
Well, the little one is adopted, so he was very expected and he
one?
was very planned.
Oh, that's That's awesome. My best friend, she has three natural born children and she adopted one as well. And
It's
yeah,
really lovely.
that is really lovely. Okay, wait. So this is very inspiring and very encouraging. And, I came into this thinking I cannot wait to talk to Lynn Nottage, but I didn't realize that you were going to educate me and speak into my life already. And I know we're not even scratching the surface, and I won't keep you long, but I still have a lot more questions. Okay,
Sure.
where do you like to write? Do you have a
Um,
spot?
yeah, I actually have a dedicated spot and I'm sitting in it right now, which is my office, which at various times has been my son's room, has been my office, has been storage space, but right now I have reclaimed it because I just love the way the sunshine comes in and I know that I have created things that have given me real joy and pleasure in this room. And so this is my writing space. I've
Mm.
reclaimed
And I like the
and
poster behind you.
yeah, the posters from Crumbs from Table of Joy. This is one of the first productions that was directed by Surratt Scott,
Mm.
and I love the production. And
Uh, love that for your ideas for because you've written so many shows. How do you get your ideas? Where do they come from?
ideas come in many different ways. I think I've had ideas that have come to me because I've been reading and I find a paragraph in a history book that just haunts me, and I think to myself, it's like I need to know more about this individual, and that seeking out leads to a play. I've written plays because I've read a newspaper headline and I've been incredibly frustrated. And I thought, why don't I know more about what's going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo? And why are women being um, targeted for gender-specific human rights abuses? And why isn't it in the newspaper? And that becomes a journey that then leads to a play. There's sometimes, I just begin writing something and I can't stop. And I'm like, oh, it's fabulation. It's fun and it's silly, and I don't need to do any research, but I'm just like inside of this character in ways that are delighting me and challenging me. So, I mean, it's really, I don't have any formula. I'm kind of freelance in that way.
Do these characters come like do they speak to you? Are they purely from your imagination? Is it like you bring these life into the do you understand what I'm like asking right now? Like when you're writing a character, do you know who he or she or they are before they hit the page? Do they do they become known to you as you're writing? Does that make any sense?
That's such a great question, and I'm of two minds with regards to the answer to that. I think sometimes I know the character very well. That character has been speaking to me in one form or another for quite some time, and they're kind of demanding to be on the page. And those are sort of the wonderful hauntings in which you're traveling with someone and you feel like, I just got to get this down. But sometimes I don't know the person at all. And the act of writing is an act of discovery. And that's also equally as wonderful as when you're trying to find someone on the page. And often, I find when I'm completely blocked as a writer, that it's because I don't know enough about my character. Like I haven't made certain decisions or certain aspects of that character haven't revealed themselves to me, which means I have to spend more time ruminating and researching and thinking
Yeah.
about who they are.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, if I'm blocked, it's because there's some information I don't have access to.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay. When you started winning awards and getting like recognized, did that change your process? Did that change like anything of the way you approach your art? Did it change anything at all?
Yeah, of course it changes everything because suddenly you have a spotlight shining on you in ways that never before. I mean, I sort of toiled in obscurity for a really long time, but I think that because the accolades came to me when I was older and I'd had this life and I'd been through so many ups and downs that I was at a point where I was ready to receive it, but I was also at a point where I am who I am.
Yeah.
And those things really aren't going to change me. I know that when you get that kind of recognition when you're young and you're still in the process of developing your voice and you're still trying to figure out how do I navigate this world, it can be quite challenging because you
Yeah.
still want to maintain who you are, but you're also not quite sure who you are because you're being told many different things. When
Correct.
I began sort of winning awards, I was on the other side of that. And so I felt like there was a freedom to continue to
Mm,
invest in who I was and what my voice was.
mm, mm. Um, did I read somewhere that you were once on a path to journalism, but you
That
chose
is
theater?
true.
What is that?
Can
Like
you
you were,
one quick sec?
uh-huh.
I just have to. My son has an orthodontist appointment and you need to come from. So please, your question. Your
Uh,
question again.
yes, absolutely. I you were on, did I read that you were once on a path to journalism, but you ended up choosing theater?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. I think that many of my summer jobs and my side jobs when I was in college and graduate school was working for small newspapers. I worked for a small newspaper called The Phoenix, which was kind of famous in Brooklyn. It was an independent paper. Then The Villager, which was a small newspaper in the village, which was the alternative to the Village Voice, not quite as hip, but much more locally, but much more locally focused. And I really loved working at both of those newspapers. And so when I graduated from college, I toyed with the possibility of going to journalism school and being a reporter. But at the same time, theater was calling me, and I was really fortunate to get into both Columbia School of Journalism and the Yale School of Drama. And someone said, you know, the Yale School of Drama is much more difficult to get into.
And that was the
So they're like, this opportunity may not come around again. And so I'm like, okay, I'll take this path. I can always go back to journalism. And I also knew that when I was in graduate school, I could also continue to go back and work for the newspaper that I had been working for. So it wasn't like I was cutting off a limb. I knew that there was a possibility that I could do both things.
she said, I only do Ivy Leagues. Li- Baby, she's smart. You are smart. You
I
are
don't know about that.
smart.
I don't know about all that.
These are not hunky dunk, podunk, middle of nowhere schools. Like these are like bombs. That is incredible. So that was the tipping point for you. They were like, this one's harder.
That's what's hard to get into. But I don't mean it to sound that way, but it just is that it was really, I was, and this is a fact, when I graduated from the Yale School of Drama and Playwriting, I was only the second Black woman to go through the writing program there, and we happened to be there at the same time. I
Oh,
mean, the industry was really different, and the ways in which we were invited into the industry were quite complicated and very different. So when I got the acceptance, I thought, oh, perhaps there
yeah.
is a pathway. Perhaps there's a way to penetrate an industry that hadn't been terribly inviting, particularly to Black women, regardless of whether it was white theater or it was Black theater. There just weren't a lot of spaces being carved out for us.
Wow. That is such a trailblazing mindset. It can be easy to see something that you're like, well, I people like me have not penetrated this space before, so maybe it's not for me. And your mind said, there's an opportunity here.
Right, there is an opportunity here. And I felt in journalism, yes, there was an opportunity and I could take that path, but there were more people taking that path than were taking it.
Have you
For
ever,
Yale School of Drama. So that's really what I meant, that it was harder to get into.
yeah, have you ever like wanted to be like an actor or like in front of the camera? Like, has that ever appealed to you?
Yeah, and not really. I would describe myself as an introvert extrovert, and there's part of me that really enjoys and relishes the solitude of sitting alone and writing and being with my characters and dreaming and creating these worlds. But there's also a little part of me that enjoys the collaborative. aspect of playwriting where I get to dream with other people and build things, but there's not a part of me that desires to be on that stage. It's like I love being in the darkness and watching people embodying the characters that I create. I love to see, how they expend my own um, dreams up there on the stage.
Okay, so when you're writing a character, do you think about, do you ever think about what they look like their hair for the character, or would you ever like meet an actor first and then kind of design something around the actor? Like how does your process?
My process works in both ways. I certainly, when I'm writing the character, it's really important to me to have a really vivid picture of who they are. And, in the old days, I used to find images of my characters and then post them in front of me so I could look at them. And it was a real shorthand. Now I can hold those images more completely in my head than I used to be able to do. But also that said, that sometimes I hear someone's voice
Mm.
in my head. Like when I was writing Intimate Apparel, it's like I heard Viola Davis's voice in my head. And I thought I could only dream one day that she would play this role. But there was something about, the strength and vulnerability that she's able to marry um, within one moment that I thought is what I wanted to capture. And so when I was sitting down to write the character of Esther in Intimate Apparel, I thought, well, what is the voice? And her voice kept coming back to me.
Mm. I'd love to talk a little bit about your own hair journey. You've got
Sure.
these gorgeous locks. Have you always had locks? How did it start? How's it going from when you were little or wherever you'd like to start?
Yeah, I came out of the womb with like little locks. No, that is so not true. I always had a really full head of hair that was challenging to my mother and my grandmother and my relatives because I was super tender-headed, and anytime someone would put a finger on it, I would be like, ow,
Ow!
don't
Ah!
touch it. But it was also really, it's funny you should ask that. It's like I had a mother who always, from the time I was young, wore an afro. She was like, there are no chemicals that are ever going to touch this hair, and I grew up, in the midst of Black power. And so she's like, I'm just going to have this fro. And granted, it wasn't like a beautiful Angela Davis fro. It was just like a fro that looks like she rolled out of bed and ran her fingers through it. And whatever it was, it was.
Okay, we
But,
love.
and I used to say, please comb that afro. And she's like, no, it's beautiful as it is. And, looking at the picture, she was so right. And then I had a
Wow.
grandmother who was very prim and proper, who I believe sported like one of the first weaves I ever seen.
Wait. Okay, wait.
She,
This was your mom's mom?
my mother's mother. And I still remember her at the dinner table, with this long hair. And I'm like, wow, when did her hair get so long? And then her lifting up the back and showing us the sewn in tracks. I'm like, what is that? And she said, it's a weave. And we're all like, wow. We've never seen anything like that. But this was like eons ago. I mean, it was before it became so extended. She literally was the first person I ever saw. But all of that said, because I had a mother who, wore a tatty afro forever, and we often looked to our mothers to
Yeah,
shape our beauty sensibilities, I wore
yeah.
a tatty afro. As I joke,
We love.
like 5 years too long,
Not 5 years too long. Oh, wait.
but 5 years, but also it came back 5 years after I got rid of it. So it was
Okay.
like so there was a 5 year period when my tatty afro wasn't in fashion because it went out of fashion and then it came back in fashion. But
But how
I
did you feel about it?
I always love my natural hair, and I only put chemicals in my hair twice in my life. And I was thinking on this, and both of them were transitional moments in which you feel very sort of vulnerable and judged by the culture and insecure in your own body. And one was in sixth grade when you're going into middle school. And I thought, oh, maybe I should straighten my hair. And I went and I got my hair straightened, and that lasted for like a year.
Okay.
And then the second time was when I was going into college.
Mm.
I put chemicals in my hair and I thought, oh, what was that about? Both of them were transitional moments where it's like, okay, maybe I need to conform a little bit. Maybe I need to make
Oh.
choices that are going to be sort of more acceptable in the
Mm.
mainstream. And in college, it lasted a year, and then I was back to my afro.
Interesting. I kind
And
of
you asked,
no, no,
sorry,
you
go.
go. Please keep going.
And you asked about the locks and how the locks came about. And the locks came about after I started a full-time job. And I had to get up at 9 o'clock every morning, and I had to be presentable to the world, and I have to interface with people, not just in the workplace, but beyond the workplace. And I thought, oh, this is taking so much time to maintain.
Mm.
I just need a hairstyle where I can
Get up and
get up
go.
and go. And so I decided to lock my hair, which was now maybe 35 years ago. No, that's not long, that long. Yeah, like it was, yeah, 32 years ago.
Shut up right now. Why am I so shook? I'm over here trying to do the math of how old I think you might be, and we don't have to talk about it. I just know that black don't crack. That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I
Yeah.
know. That is incredible. Were you nervous at first? Were you like, is there going back after this, or is this permanent? Like, were you confident in locking it? Like,
I knew it wasn't permanent. I knew that any time if it wasn't working, but there's always that moment when you're first locking and you're trying to get the hair to behave and it's doing whatever it was, and people are like, "What's going on up there?" And you're like, "Trust me, something will be going on very shortly.
something
Just
will
ignore
be.
what's going on right now." But I mean. It's interesting because when I began locking my hair, there weren't a lot of folks out there in the mainstream who were doing it. I do remember that there was quite a bit of resistance, and I felt, the judgmental eyes of some people who just didn't understand. It's like, are you Rasta, or is this religious? It's like, why are you doing it?
Oh,
But it just felt like it was the right path for me
yeah.
and the right way to express who I am and how I was feeling and how I wanted the world to see me. It's like I wanted the world to see my hair in a style that just is organic to who I
Yeah. How do you keep them so neat and they just look really like you take care of them? How do you take care of them?
I just wash and style. Wash and twist.
What do you mean
And
wash and twist? You do you twist it on your own?
I twisted on my own. I've always twisted on my own just because I felt very sensitive about other people twisting my hair too tight or, I don't know. I just always felt like I could do the maintenance on my own better than the salons that I had gone to do the maintenance because inevitably I'd leave and there's always part of me that wanted to cry.
Mm.
Either,
Ooh.
the color of the dye was wrong or they had twisted it too tight and put it in a style that, hurt my head and then I'd have a week of pain. And so I just thought I can do it.
Is it easy for somebody who's maybe listening to this who might be considering locking their own hair and they're like, I don't know what to do? Is it easy to like do that yourself?
What I would recommend if someone's like in the first stage of exploring whether they want their hair in locks is I would go to a salon, let someone else start it for you.
Okay.
Let someone else help you maintain it because what happens is like that first 6 months you wash your hair and then it's like, oh no, I have to really, really redo it, but they can help you get it started so that it locks.
Great. Great. Do you tie it up at night?
I used to tie it up at night. Um, Yes, I mean, sometimes,
Some
sometimes not.
nice. That really does sound like freedom, Lynn. Like,
It really is free. It's free, which is why I chose this hairstyle, because I was spending far too much time on hair maintenance. I mean, it was
yeah.
becoming, I was making, and also, and here's the other thing is I was making certain choices based on my hair.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and I thought, I don't want my hair to dictate how I'm going to move through this world.
Do you think that you will stay locked forever?
I don't think so.
Really?
No, I don't think so. I mean, and that said, it's like there were times when I had really, really short hair, like right down to the scalp. And I also love that freedom. I love the freedom of
Mm,
wash and wear, where, you could feel the water on your head when you got up in the morning and you didn't have to do a lot.
mm.
And so, it's the two extremes. And so I toy with, do I want to go back there where I just did literally nothing? I want
Yeah.
to get a haircut every once in a while.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, I'd like to ask you, and I'll only spend a few more minutes, but who are your inspirations?
Who are my inspirations? Oh, I have so many. I have so many inspirations. I mean, I think the first inspiration for me was my mother, who many ways had such a wonderful rebellious spirit in ways that I have come to so appreciate as I get older, is that she was idiosyncratic and she really was forging new territory in so many ways. And I thought, oh, I aspire to do that. I
Mm,
aspire to be adventurous in where I choose to go. I aspire, to push back on injustice when I see it. And I aspire to be like a good parent and a good partner and all of those things that she was. So I think that as I get older, I take more and more inspiration from her because I lost her early. And so I felt like there's so many questions that I didn't get to ask her. But I'm asking those questions anyway by just interrogating who she was. And then, yeah, I mean, I would say that that's my main inspiration.
oh, and obviously, you are taking up space in the industry. But how do you feel that theater or television or however you want to frame the industry as, how do you think they're doing in terms of diversity?
You know, there was a moment maybe 3 years ago, maybe it was just before COVID and just after George Floyd and the cultural reckoning, and when we really had an opportunity to express our voices communally in ways that we hadn't before in the industry and push back at some of the barriers that had been placed in front of us, and it felt like there was going to suddenly be real opportunity. You saw more women being hired, more people of color being hired, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera and in all sorts of positions. But I feel like there's been a retrenching that's quite scary to me. I think when I look purely at the theater landscape, at how optimistic I was when there were people being placed in leadership roles. But then we saw 2 or 3 years later that they weren't being given the support and the tools to succeed. And some of them were not able to survive, the onslaught of criticism and the
Yeah.
lack of support, and they disappeared. But that said, I mean, there's still incredible reasons for optimism in theater because we do, when you look across the theater landscape, have people of color who are leading very important institutions, which means that they're pathways for our stories.
Yeah.
They may not be everywhere, but they're more than there were prior to COVID. And
Yeah.
so that's great, but I do think we still have to be vigilant and we still have to protect our space and we still have to push back because I think it's really easy, as we know, for things to slingshot. I'm looking at affirmative action and the
Yeah.
college that I went to, and they were saying that this year there are 40% less Black students, and it just made my heart cry to
Oh,
think that all this progress had been made, and because of this one
40%?
40% less. And because of this one law, suddenly, that 40% is not going to get access to opportunity. Hopefully they will get access, but not to that thing that perhaps they desired.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
think that we just have to keep our antennas like raised
Yeah.
and be alert and aware that we may have some opportunities now, but it doesn't mean that we will have those forever. And particularly for those who are my ages, it's incumbent upon us to really support the next generation
Yeah.
and to help them like slot into those positions that we have occupied.
Mm. Um, this might be an unfair question, but out of all of your babies, aka the things that you've written, which one
Mhm.
is your favorite?
Oh, that's impossible
I,
to say. I mean, it's like, what's your favorite child? It's
I
like
know.
I have reasons that endear a certain place to my heart. Like Intimate Apparel, it's a play that I wrote after my mother died because I want to write something I thought she would love to see. And so I always think of it as her play. And when I see it, I think of her and I think of my grandmother and I think of family. Even though it's not about those things, that's what that play conjures for me. So I think that that one really occupies a special place in my heart.
Mm,
And I think about a play like Ruined that really forced me to go so way outside of my personal comfort zone and to face down some of my fears to go to spaces that I never would have dreamed of going to. And so
mm,
that also has a special place in my heart because it taught me a different way to make art in a way that I love making art.
mm. What do you want your legacy to be?
I've been teaching for the last 23
That's a
years.
long time.
A really long time. I began the day after 9/11, so I know exactly.
Oh,
It's like I remember exactly the day I began because yeah, I won't bore you with the details, but I think that one of the things that, if anything, is I feel like my legacy is the fact that I have touched in some way so many other writers,
mm,
and I have um, helped pave pathways for them to success. And, I talked to my students really about invisible curation. And early on, I realized that it was really important for us not just to um, help by um, being out there, is that we actually had to do tangible things to help people. And one of those things that I did was try and get on panels
oh,
so that
yeah,
really early on so that I could help select people whose work might be overlooked.
yes,
I could sit on boards. I can do all of these things which I call invisible curation that can help people succeed and they don't even know that they're being helped, which is the best kind of help.
whoa, that's I
That hopefully is my legacy, is that it may be invisible, but it's there because there's so many other people out there.
mm. Couple more questions. Is there anything that you're working on right now that's filling your soul?
Yeah, I have a few things that I'm working on. I've been working on two operas. Well, and
Operas.
yeah, operas, and both with my daughter Ruby Io Gerber, who's incredible um, writer and poet and thinker. And one is going to premiere next year at Opera St. Louis. That was composed by Ricky and Gordon, who was my collaborator on Intimate Apparel, the opera. And then the other one, which is a commission from Lincoln Center and the Met, is called In the Rush with composer Carlos Simon, who's fantastic.
That
And
is
so those are things
awesome.
that have been really fun and different and making different parts of my brain excited and using different muscles in my brain. And then the other thing that I've been working on that I really love is an adaptation of Imitation of Life
Oh,
with John Legend, a musical, and director Liesl Tommy. And it's really beautiful and I think really exciting. And I think that audiences are going to be surprised by it because it really lives in ways that are very different than other musicals. I mean, that it's weighty and it's complicated and it's a musical.
oh, that sounds like fire. I am so excited to hear more about that. And I'm still shook about MJ. I was not sure what to expect except that I loved the music growing up and it was amazing. Was that your first musical? No, that was not your first
No, it
musical.
was my first musical. I'd done Secret Life of Bees.
Oh, yes. Right, right,
Okay.
right.
To MJ and this, and I'd done like another musical called Sweet Billy and the Zulus, which was a children's musical with the wonderful Deborah Murray, and so that's where I like dipped my toes into the water.
I'm like,
And
can you
then
just plunge all the way in? Because, and
well, MJ, I plunge all the way in. I was
yes,
like in the water.
I'm like, give it to me, Lynn, because we love your writing. We love it. And I'm like a musical, like I'm an actress on Broadway. Like that's what so I like musicals. I usually, I gravitate more towards musicals than to plays, which is so hilarious because of all the plays I've written, yours is most of them. Like it's mostly your plays. But I'm like, Lynn Nottage plus the musical world, it is like,
It's
it's a
really different.
dream.
It's different and it's fun and it's more challenging.
I'll say, give us more. Can I say that? Give
Yeah,
us,
well, hopefully, Imitation of Life will be out there in the next couple of years.
I will be looking for it. That sounds incredible. Lynn Nottage, you are so incredible. You're incredible. And thank you for taking the
Thank
time
you.
this morning and talking and sharing your insights and your knowledge and your wisdom and your spirit. And I hope that you have a brilliant rest of your day and that you
You
keep
too.
influencing people.
And thank you. And thank you for having me and thank you for your spirit and thank you for just the opportunity to be in conversation.
Oh my gosh, what a blessing. Lynn Nottage, everybody.